So sometimes I would wonder, what is a master? And what makes a master master? I mean, what is it, its characteristics, how to identify one, and what's the definition of a master? And especially for me, the question is like, what's the difference between a beginner and a master? Is it someone who is entitled to be called as such, like literally have a title, some degree, a piece of paper issued by an authority, a document? Is it like someone who wears a uniform, medals? Maybe just, it's another word for being an expert, a guru. And with the word guru, I think about an old wise guy with a white beard. That's important, white beard. Like Jesus Christ or God sometimes is depicted. Definitely someone who is experienced, lots of hard work and years of practice. But that alone, I think it's not enough, because usually what should come with this hard work is also superior skills. So someone who is competent, maybe even reach perfection, otherwise it's just an intermediate person. And when it's something theoretical, also a deeper understanding. Definitely for me, there are attitudes like a person who is more confident, therefore also more humble because of this inner strength. And therefore also a little bit more easygoing and slow, chill, right? Ultimately for me, a beginner and a master are actually identical. At least there's a difference on the outside. The essential difference is on the inside. It's internal. It's more the intention, invisible to the eye. There's this saying in Zen Buddhism: in the beginning, mountains are mountains and rivers are rivers. Later on, mountains are not mountains and rivers are not rivers. And still later, mountains are mountains and rivers are rivers. Yeah, right. Zen guys, come on. There are different ways to interpret that. So the official one is, to the untrained eye, the things still seem to be different from each other, seem to be separate. Then when we see the truth underneath, that everything is actually one, that's like this intermediate state. But at the very end, reaching enlightenment, we can enjoy the dream, being in its separation, yet knowing it's just an illusion. And I made a separate video about this highly fascinating topic of the illusion of separation. But for this video, I would interpret it in such a way that at the beginning everything seems simple. Then everything gets very complex, because of good reasons. And then we can let go of this complexity, yet maintaining the good reason underneath. Take, for example, communication systems. I'm personally a very big fan of Marshall Rosenberg's non-violent communication, although I have some difficulties with how the mechanics are being taught. But nevertheless, when I'm uneducated, I would say something like, the book is good, you are beautiful, Austria is bad. I use simple language, yet confusing my own judgment, which is an interpretation of reality or a moral evaluation of good and bad, with reality itself. So the difference between subjective and objective. We are subjects and we can never be fully objective. And sometimes there's even this confusion with ego identity, like the example I gave with Austria is bad. I grew up in Austria, so me equals Austria. Someone says Austria is bad, thus me equals bad. And then I would consider it as a personal insult. Yet I shall remind myself that people don't say what is the facts, they always talk about their own opinion. To solve that, once I learn about, for example, non-violent communication, I become an intermediate person and I will be more precise with language, so I prefix it with, I consider this book as good. I imagine you are angry, or I think that Austria is bad. So we become more aware and we own our own subjective experience. We disentangle it from the confusion of it being an objective statement. Yet there's a little bit of a being stuck sensation of there's only one right way to do it, and this simplified thinking and judgment is abandoned. And also sometimes I catch myself with this tendency to correct not only myself, meaning feeling bad if I have not done it the right way, but also correcting others. That can maybe lead to some annoyance in other people. And this is where I am currently at, to be honest, and many other people are as well. In the last stage as a master, I can again say the simplified version of that sentence, you are beautiful. The book is good and Austria is bad. You see, it's like mountains are mountains again in its original shape, yet being totally aware of the subjective nature of our statements. This happens while I talk, but also while I listen. I can internally translate what is being said and make the seemingly objective statement a subjective one. Simple language is useful, it allows to speed up things. And I agree that there are some critical circumstances where we need to take more time to be more precise with language. But then it's a choice of the master to do it one way or the other, which for the other two stages we don't have that available. Take for example something completely different, riding a bicycle. As a beginner I would just wobble around left and right, almost falling. As an intermediate I would be very quick and precise. Think of a professional bicyclist going very fast and maybe trained with a coach, and again there is this very clear definition of what's right and wrong. Everything in order to gain maximum efficiency and win in a competition, most likely. It's fascinating, it's admirable, yet also I think it's a little bit stiff, tensed up, and it's lacking the joy. As a master then, I would ride my bicycle as a clown in a circus tent. I would wobble around left and right, almost falling, just exactly as the beginner, but this time the difference is that it's a deliberate choice. As a master I can let go of the necessity to show how good I am, because frankly I know I can. Again, something from Japanese martial arts, they have this concept of Shuhari, stages of learning to mastery, which translate as follow the rule, break the rule, and become the rule. When there's a traffic light and as a young child I would just blindly obey whatever it says. When it says red, I will stop. When it says green, I will walk. I don't really understand why, and I also don't have the skills to decide on my own what to pay attention to. It's just too risky, so I just blindly obey the authorities. And at that stage I would say that's also a good thing. Once we reach the second stage, where we break the rule and we become more old and, puberty, rebel against things. It's the middle of the night, I see a familiar crossing, there's no car coming, the light is red, but I will still walk because, I can trust my own judgment there. On the last stage, when we become the rule, we kind of achieve the full understanding of the reason of that rule. We can decide on ourselves whether I will obey it or not. You can also on the fly choose to maybe create different rules which are not now in this moment more useful. You can use a traffic light as an indicator and at the same time also rely on our very own senses. Another example would be my car. My good old first car, Nissan Micromouse, old, slow and cheap, still beautiful in its own way. When the traffic lights would turn green, I would go very slow. Not because I want to go slow, just because the car is so slow. I had no other choice. As an intermediate, I would buy myself a very big, strong car. It's often young men like I used to be, not really being confident about our masculinity. We would need some way to compensate for that. We need some external validation. Am I good enough? These people are usually the dangerous one because they still need to prove themselves. A beginner doesn't do it because he knows he can't. A master doesn't see the point in why would I need to. It's just usually the people in this in-between stage. So when then the traffic light would go green, they would immediately go very fast. Cars, an extension of their ego, showing their strength, their power. Because they're not sure, am I able to do it or not? So therefore this constant need to prove it. And at the end as a master I would drive a Porsche, the traffic light would go green and I would drive very slowly, just as with my Nissan Micromouse. This time I do have a choice, but I choose not to because, again, I know I can, why would I? The last example is about flowers. It's like I have this image of a garden where the sign says, please don't step on the flowers, or maybe even more commanding, don't step on the flowers, exclamation mark. As a beginner, as a child, I would again blindly obey. I will not do it because the sign says so, that's the only justification I need. As an intermediate, Again, teenager, I would rebel against it. How do you dare to tell me what to do and what not to do? Like, hell no. I would step on them just in order to deny the authority of the sign. I don't think there's freedom in that as well, because only doing the opposite of what's being said is not freedom. It's of course not conforming, but it's anti-conforming, which is basically the same, just inverted. And as a master, I would say I wouldn't step on the flower not because of the sign, but because I have a deeper understanding. I would appreciate the beauty of the flower and I would like to preserve its existence. Why would I want to destroy it for no obvious reason? So I've embodied the rule, I became the rule, I understood the principle behind it, and I chose to go with it, coincidentally, the same as the sign said. So what is the difference between a beginner and a master? It seems to me they're the same. At the beginning everything is ordinary and boring. In between, as an intermediate, things become more different, more separate. Professional, yet a little bit stuck, a little bit stiff. It looks great, right? It's impressive, it's fast, it's strong, it's nice to show off and get recognition from others. Yet as a master I think things become boring and ordinary again. As my teacher once said, good kung fu looks bad, only bad kung fu looks good. So we go back to the basics, to simplicity, and find the depth there.